Hi, good evening, good morning, everyone. We will start in a couple of minutes. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, so we'll start with a recap of what we have done yesterday. So yesterday we have completed our AWS. We have seen various AWS services, and we are able to move on to uh, Azure. Hmm? Just give me a thumbs up if you are able to hear me clearly. Anybody? Hmm? Yes, thank you, Sanjana. So I yesterday I told you to get the Azure account created, and if you have created that, uh, that will help you to do some practicals today. Hmm? So basically, the agenda would be I will cover a brief introduction of the Azure global infrastructure, just like what we did for our AWS environment. Hmm? Again, if you want to start using your Azure environment, you need to create an account, which will be a free tier account. And after 30 days of usage, this account will be converted into a pay as you go model. Now, what is this pay as you go model? Like it is whatever you are going to use it, you will pay for it after this particular 30 days period. Hmm? And you will be charged based upon various services what you are going to use within your Azure account. To create this Azure account, you need to have a credit card handy, and that will be used to verify the details. One more link I want to share you with you, which will help you to use your to learn the practical aspect without actually getting the account created. Hmm. So this is Microsoft Learn. There is a site called Microsoft Learn. Yes, here is Microsoft Learn. And in this, you will have different modules. This will cover whatever we are trying to cover in our syllabus. And then you will be able to just run the various things within this sandbox, which is provided with this Azure, this the Learn account. Hmm? So you can go here. For example, I just will show you something. Describe, not this one, but I will. Okay, yes. Let me just discuss fundamental this. benefit, knowledge check. No, this is not what I want to show you. I will just browse it and I can look at the Azure part, which is yes, this one. And in this, we will have not this one. Yes, here you can see in this we will be able to create a Azure storage account and work with it. So in this you will get a sandbox and you will be able to work with it. This can be filter out based upon your, let's say, AZ 900 as an exam, and it will give you all the curriculum for the AZ 900. Here it is. Here it is what I was. This is for the beginner. Decide how to create a virtual network. And in this, you will also have a session for the sandbox. Okay, fine. Yes, I will share that link. Don't worry. I will keep on sharing the links. Do I get this? Core services. And so let me look at the AZ104, which is more of a administration, and you can work with this, create your compute resources and so on. Yes. Okay. Virtual machine. Yes, here it is. Okay, so it will continue and I can do a connect to the virtual machine, continue and refer to this. Okay, here also it is not showing anything. Continue, implement, auto scale, fine. You will see step by step all the things. Why it is not showing anything here? The sandbox. It shows the sandbox actually. But I'm going to give this link and you will be able to use it. There is the link for everybody, and we'll move to our PPT first. Okay, so I have given you an introduction of what is Azure. Yesterday, Azure is the cloud computing platform from Microsoft, which was used by not many people. It is the second most used cloud platform from Microsoft, and we'll see that today. Now, before we go and understand the various surveys as part of our Azure infrastructure, what we are going to see is we look at the global infrastructure. Global infrastructure means nothing but the infrastructure on which your Azure environment is built and how you are going to access, what are the different components, how the various services like storage, compute, network is built in various physical data centers across the globe. Azure has one of the largest interconnected network of resources, services in the world. This is one of the link of a website, which is a third-party website, but it gives you a very, very good interaction of the various Azure region. So like this, I shown you yesterday. I will give you the link for this as well. Let us go and look at each of the components. So first and foremost thing we want to look at is the region. So what so Azure region is nothing but it's made of two or more data center which are in a close proximity. Yeah, one or more data center within a close proximity. This is actual the physical data center of Azure. At this moment, the Azure regions are spread across the globe, close to around 140 countries plus 60 plus regions. With this, spread of the Azure region across the globe. You have the flexibility to build your environment, to build your applications across the globe. Hmm? And by having your region across the complete globe, you have the flexibility to give the customer a very responsive application which has very low latency and support them. By you having regions in various countries, it also help you to challenge to tackle the challenge of compliance, data residency, and any kind of a compliance which will come when we are handling the data of the customer. So that is also taken care by using this concept of the region. In India, we have three regions. One is West India, Central India, and South India. So these are the three regions which are within India, and um, we can use West, Central, and South India as per our need. Then within the Azure global infrastructure, we also have a concept of availability zone. Hmm? So what it does, it provides you any kind of a protection from any actual physical data center failure. Hmm? So the availability zone is similar concept what we have seen in the AWS. It is going to provide you a resiliency in terms of a data center failure. They are nothing but physically separated data center, which is part of the same region. Every day AZ will have its own uh, power, UPS, networking, internet connectivity, and so on. All these AZs are interconnected with each other by using a fiber optic network. So this is same concept what we have seen in the AWS environment. Now this availability zone might not be available in each and every region. So whenever you want to have this availability zone concept in terms of your Azure environment, go and check the document. Why? Because this is not available in each and every region, and we have to look after this feature, then only we'll be able to use this. There are other concepts in Azure, which is something called as fault domain, update domain, which is nothing but a part of an availability set. We will explore that later on. Somehow this is different from what we have seen in the AWS environment. Then we also have Azure Edge Location. Azure Edge Location are nothing but a small footprint of your data center, which will support certain services like virtual machine containers and a certain latency sensitive application, yeah, which will provide you a very fast and throughput intensive apps to the user closest to their environment. Now, in our class, what I will do is I will keep on sharing many resources for Azure, because the documentation is so vast, and you will be benefited by using various documents of Azure to explore further. So one of this is the location. Here, if I just go and look at the location, these are the different locations. What you can see, I can go and look based upon the geographic region. For example, in India, you can see, yeah, okay, there is a very good South Central India. This is a new addition which has happened from last time. What I have seen, this is a new addition which is happening. That is wonderful for, very good. So this, like this, you can go, you can select the geography, and you can get additional resources as well for your the environment, and you will be able to have various other resources within this URL. So here it is. Then on the availability zone, and yes. Now, one of the key, I would say, aspect of your Azure global infrastructure, it has a concept of called key region pair. Hmm? There are certain services which works in a pair. For example, your site recovery, Azure site recovery. This is one of the service which will work in pairs, which will help you to have a primary site and a secondary site if there is any kind of a disaster which happens at the primary region. And if that happens, your service will fail over to the secondary region. So this concept of region pair is unique in Azure, and it will give you a list of the regions which are in pair. For example, we have South India is paired with Central India, then US East is paired with your US West, and so on. This region pair are nothing but a data center which are spread across at least 300 miles from each other. There is automatic replication of some of the services. That's what I've told you. So they will be automatically replicated between these two region pair. By using this region pair, what you are getting is we are prioritizing region recovery in case of any event or outage. And then updates are also rolled out sequentially to minimize the downtime in this region. Yeah, first they might do the patching or maintenance on one of the region, and sorry for that. Yeah, I was on mute for a couple of minutes. I was telling about that. Yes, it is going to prioritize any kind of a region recovery in case of any event failure. Hmm? If you want to look at the latest the details about the region pair, here is the link for you. Hmm? Then within your Azure global infrastructure, we have the various availability option. Hmm? This is little unique as compared to other service provider. Hmm? We have seen the concept of availability zone. Yeah, so it is going to protect you from an entire data center failure. And like this, we also have a concept of a multi-region disaster recovery. With this single availability recovery or availability option, we get an SLA of 99.99%. Hmm? And if you look at a single VM, which is a ideal case for your setting up a single VM, which will be very easy to do a lift and shift migration of your database or your data, then this is having a very less SLA as compared to your other availability options. With your region pair, uh, you are recovered or you are covered from the protection of any region failure, and also from a data residency perspective. Hmm? So these are the availability option. We will see this availability option when we are going to create our virtual machine. Hmm? Later on in the class, we are going to see the option for our availability as well. Hmm? So here is one of the link for the availability zone. I'm just pasting in the chat, and I can just show it on the screen as well. It covers the same information which I have just shared with you, and this is the latest one. I would say yes. Okay, it is still not updated on the diagram, but it is there in the document that we have a south central India region as well. Hmm? And this is the concept of the availability zone, region pair, and so on. Hmm? So I will just share you this detail, just share that. Fine. I hope you are able to understand the concept of our regional pair. So let us move ahead. Yeah, this is done. Now, before we move into the various services of Azure, I want to just reiterate the concept of the PaaS, ISaaS, and a software as a service model of the cloud computing. Now, this computing model or this computing model is very predominantly referred when we are referring to the Azure environment. So we have to be very aware when somebody talks about Azure environment, he talks in terms of I'm using a PaaS environment, I'm using a ISAS environment. So you need to be aware of the terminology whenever you are using the Azure environment. This is not predominantly used when you are talking about the AWS environment. Okay, so again, reiterating this, uh, any data which is there on your on-premise, the responsibility lies with you. You as an end user have to manage completely end-to-end infrastructure, storage, networking, compute, operating system, data, application. It is all your responsibility. Hmm? In this case, everything you have to manage. In this case, the overhead on your team, on your resources is more. Once we move to the cloud computing models, we can break down those into three different layers, which is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and a software as a service. Whatever which is represented in the yellow color or orange color, yeah, that is the one which is taken care by the cloud service provider. This is taken care by Microsoft. They will take care of the storage, networking, compute part. They will take care of the infrastructure which is needed to build this three very critical part of the environment. Hmm? Any kind of a resiliency for this, it is taken care by them. What you as a user have to take care is to build the virtual machine, the operating system for it, any runtime which is needed for your application, the application which is going to sit on top of your virtual machine, and you also need to handle the data part. Hmm? All this is going to be handled by you in the infrastructure as a service. With this infrastructure as a service, you have more responsibilities when you are managing the infrastructure. When I and this is generally categorized into the move uh, category of the infrastructure. Then this is in the build stage of the your environment, wherein you as a user are taking care of only your application and whatever the data which is needed for your application to perform. The rest of the things is taken care by your service provider. What extra it is taking care? It is taking care of the virtual machine provisioning. It is taking care of the operating system install, and it is also providing you the runtime which is needed for your application to perform as expected. In this case, the onus of maintaining this is more on the service provider rather than you as an end user. Then we move to the last stage, which is the consume, and this is referred as software as a service. In this case, you as an end user of this customer is only going to be bothered about managing your data and how do you access those data to various user of this offering, the SaaS offering. Rest all of the things is taken care by the service provider. And with this, okay, you don't have to bother, you don't have to worry about all the parts which are there in the yellow or the orange color. Yeah, your everything is taken care by your service provider, and you are only you needed to take care of the data and the access to it. So I hope this is clear. We have seen it one more time now. Hmm? Then I will going to give you a walkthrough of the Azure portal, how it look like, what are the different components, and so on. Whenever you want to connect to your Azure environment, you have to use this URL, which is portal.azure.com. So let me go into my portal and I will show you all those things. So I will log into my portal and here it is. Okay. So here you can see this is our portal and you will see lot of services. Just a minute, what is there in this? I just want to look at this. Yeah, I want to make it clean slate so that you can um, focus on what is there in the on the screen and should not yeah, get distracted because of that. Okay, so fine, yes. So as you can see here, yeah, so this is your Azure portal. It looks similar to what we have seen for our AWS environment. Here also you have a search tab wherein you can go and search the various services. In terms of virtual machine services, we have a simple name for it that is called as virtual machine. This fall under the category of compute resources within the Azure environment. If you want to look at the storage part, then you have to just go and type in the storage account. So very simple in terms of the storage. Uh, fine. Now, one more very important thing, if you have noticed it, the names of the various services within Azure are very pretty simple. They are not fancy as compared to your AWS, and you can easily relate to do that. Then if you look at your account, you will see the account and the details of the account. And you can see that it is tied up to a default directory. Now, whenever you are using your Azure environment, we have a heavy reliance on the Microsoft Active Directory concept. We will see that what is Microsoft Active Directory. Every solution, every identity solution in the Azure environment is revolving around the Active Directory. So whenever we create a Azure account, our subscription is tied up to a default Active Directory. Now, what is subscription? We will see that in details, but subscription is nothing but a kind of a logical boundary which will help you to segregate your billing and access which are tied up to this. All your billing will be tied up to this subscription. Now, in my case, I have a subscription which is entitled from a Visual Studio license, which I have. And that's the reason I can see the subscription name as Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. So you can see there is a logical boundary which will show me the cost which I use for various resources. I can see the bill, all those things within it. We'll see that later on. In your case, you will see that as a free tier account, free tier subscription. Somebody might also see if you are using some account which is given by a service provider, which in this case is called as cloud service provider. It will be shown as a CSP subscription. Okay, so don't worry about it. It will be like that on. Then you can provide the feedback by using this button. If you have any queries, concern, you can look at the service health check of your Azure environment from here. You can look at connect to the Azure community, explore any kind of a documentation, and if you need any support, yes, you can read a support request from here. You can look at the settings of your account. Okay, for example, I have different directories within my environment which are tied up to a different domain. Then whatever the things you are doing within your Azure environment, you will get notification of all the things within this bell icon. For example, I have just deleted one of the resources, so you can see this resource is showing here and the actual credit I have in my account. Then you will see the various directory by using this, and the other option which is called as Cloud Shell, which is nothing but a CLI option which is available with your Azure environment to connect to the resources in the Azure. Now, whenever you are working with your Azure environment, there are various ways how you can connect via the CLI. One of the way which is very predominant with the Microsoft environment is the use the PowerShell command line. Now, this PowerShell command line can be helpful for you to interact with your Azure resources. The same PowerShell will be also applicable to interact with various other Microsoft component as well. So we are just looking at one component of a Microsoft ecosystem, which is the Azure platform. There are other platforms like MS 365, yeah, then the MS Dynamic, MS Power Apps, and so on. So for that, you can use the PowerShell. Then you can also interact with using the Bash script, and then there is also a Azure CLI. So whenever we are doing a practical for our Azure environment, you will see the same thing is shown in multiple options for your that particular what you can say service. So it will show you, let's say, yes, like this. Whether we have okay here or not, continue. Okay, it will show things based upon the portal, the CLI, and so on. Let me look at other option. Okay, but I will show you that. So like this, you will have various other options for us to connect to the CLI option. Then from here, you can see all the categories of the services which are available within Azure. And again, they are also categorized into various type of the resources. For example, you can look at all resources like this, yeah, and you can go into the virtual machine. You can go into the Azure directory and so on. Like this, you can see all the yeah. So like in compute, you can see all the compute resources. In networking, you can see all the network resources. In storage, you can see all web and so on. So again, there are so many services which are available within the Azure, and we'll explore some of the very important services in the Azure environment. Now going back to our yeah. So this is what I want to show you as part of our walkthrough of the portal, and we will explore a few more things as and when we are doing our practical. Okay. So let us go and move on to another concept which is called as Azure or Microsoft Active Directory. Now, what is MS Active Directory? So there are two types of directories which we generally come across. One will be the Microsoft Active Directory, which is plain simple. It's a Windows server, which is which is nothing but a kind of a directory of a hierarchical structure in which you are storing the information of various endpoints object within your network. Now, this object or this endpoint can be your user, it can be a groups, it can be your laptop, it can be your desktop, and so on. So this directory service, which is also called as Active Directory Domain Service, it provides the method for storing various directory data and making this data available to the network users and administrator so that they can take care of the provisioning of the users, management of the users, assigning the permissions, policies, and all those things. So remember, this MS Active Directory is a Windows server which will provide you with this feature of managing users, their permissions, the groups, yeah, and any other uh, endpoints like your laptop, your desktop, and so on. Your Active Directory domain service, it's a classic on-prem service which is available for you from last 2000 and yeah, it has a very huge market penetration in terms of almost 90% market share. If you look at any kind of a identity provider solution, you will see that Active Directory is present in almost all the enterprise customers. Hmm? Within the Active Directory, we will look at the concept of what is forest, what is domain, what is OU, organizational unit, which is helpful for you to have a logical separation, a logical management of your objects within that particular Active Directory. Hmm? For maintaining or managing your various physical resources, for example, your virtual machine, your actual physical machines, all those things. For this to control, we need something called as domain controller, or that is called as DC. Yeah, this is a server which will help you to do a domain join of your virtual machines and your actual physical machines. Hmm? It is also going to help you to have certain group policies, local authorization configured in your environment, and you can pass on certain policies which will help you to do a granular management of the computer and the user settings. For example, you can have your desktop locked down so that nobody else will be able to change anything within your desktop. For example, a simple wallpaper on your desktop. By using the group policies, you will be able to lock down that, and so that nobody will be able to just change the wallpaper on your laptop or a desktop. That is also possible. Yeah. So let us look at the concept. What is forest? Hmm? So this is Somebody who's good at Windows, he will be able to understand the structure of the Active Directory. Within those, we have certain concept. For example, forest. Forest is nothing but it's a logical construct used by your Active Directory to group one or more domain. Now, what is the domain in this case? Domain can be something like this, xyz.com. Yeah, this can be my domain, which I will use like say, yeah, user1 at the rate xyz.com, and that becomes your domain. So whenever you create a domain, you need to create something called as forest, and which will help you to group one or more domain. The domain then can store the various object, which can be a user, groups, or any kind of a authentication service which is needed for this user to connect to various components of your environment. Now, what is domain? In an Active Directory term, a domain is nothing but an area of network organized by a single authentication database. So it will have all the information of your users part of this domain. Yeah, Active Direct domain is essentially a logical grouping of object on a network. Domains are created so IT team can establish administrative boundary between different network entities. Yeah, Active Directory domains are controlled by a tool called domain controller. Based upon the capacity of the server, you need to have multiple domain controller based upon number of users which are part of your Active Directory. You need to have n number of domain controller based upon that. Hmm? Domain controller act as a domain authority, meaning it is responsible for any object permission within your Active Directory, authentication, modification, and edits within your domain. So very, very powerful use of a domain controller when you want to manage all the users, laptops, endpoints, and so on. Then we have organization unit. What is organization unit? It is nothing but a kind of a logical grouping of your domain. For example, here is my domain, XYZ domain. Within that, I can create OU based upon my business unit. For example, this is finance. Yeah. Then I can create another OU, which can be HR. Then I can have a third OU, which can be, let's say, IT. So like this, you can create something called as organization unit, which will help you to subdivide your Active Directory, where you can have different users, groups, computer, and so on. You create organization unit to mirror your organizational functionality or your business structures, so that you have a segregation of this, and then every other OU can work individually within the Microsoft environment. So this is your organization unit. Now, let us look at Azure Active Directory. Now we can have Active Directory on the on-premise, which will be called as MS Active Directory, and we can also have an Active Directory which is on your Azure environment. Okay, so now at any given point of time, yes, within the ecosystem, you can have two Active Directory working at the same time. Now, how does that work? It works on a concept of a trust. Hmm? It creates some kind of a trust that is called as trust. And there are two types of trust: one-way trust, one-way, and two-way trust. Hmm? In this case, two-way trust, what will happen is any user which is sitting somewhere here in the on-premise, yeah, and if he wants to authenticate with the Active Directory, which is on-premise, he will be able to do it. Any user who's part of the Azure world, if he wants to authenticate, then he can go here and authenticate. So that means at any given point of time, this Active Directory, which is the Windows Active Directory, and the Azure Active Directory will have same state of information for all the users within organization. The user can go anywhere to the Active Directory and get authenticated within the organization. So any user which is local will try to go and reach the Active Directory on-premise. Any user which is in the cloud, he will be able to do that by authenticating into the Active Directory. And this is possible by using a two-way trust, wherein the data which is there on your on-premise Active Directory will be synced to your Azure Active Directory. Hmm? And by using this, you will be able to do user group authentication authorization. When I use the authorization in the Windows Active Directory, I use a protocol as Kerberos or NTLM. When I use the authentication within the Azure environment, I use various protocol like SAML, Simple Assertion Markup Language, or OAuth, or OpenID Connect, or I can use Web Identity Federation as well. Yeah. So end result is what? You can authenticate and authorize your users, whether it is from the on-premise or whether it is from the Azure. Hmm? So again, if I look at this definition of it, it's a cloud-based suite of identity management capabilities that enables you to securely manage access to your Azure services as well as the resources for your user. So when I use this Azure Active Directory, it is not just managing the users, but it is also managing the services. It provides application management, authentication, device management, and even the hybrid identity. Hybrid identity, which means it can provide identity for the on-premise as well as your the cloud user. Okay, so let me go and share you a link of it, which is going to give you more information of the Active Directory offerings. And here is the one link which will help you. Not here, yes. What is Active Directory? It is going to help you to understand more concept. I know this concept is little different from what we have seen in the Linux, but this is the Windows world, and you will see some different concept which are being used. Hmm? So you can see here in this environment. Let me just make it little small so that I can also see properly. You will see it's a cloud-based identity. I can have a quick start for this. Yeah, and yes, this is how you can create. Okay, and whenever we are using the Azure Active Directory, there are different flavors of license. We'll see that as well. Hmm. But this is the link for your Active Directory. Then moving to next. Yeah. Okay. One of few of the features of your Azure Active Directory is it provides you single sign-on feature. Now, what is single sign-on feature? So you might be using your Gmail. Yeah, yeah, Gmail, or you might be using your Facebook, or you might be using your Amazon, yeah, Amazon ID as well. Hmm? So whenever you try to log in into any application, they will ask you to use any of your this providers details. Okay. So this kind of a access of a various application by using your certain social identity provider. These are called a social identity provider, and the same user ID and a password is being used multiple application. That is called a single sign-on, which means same username and password, but there are multiple application like this and this, which will have the same user and password to connect to it. So single sign-on is one of the feature which is provided by your Azure Active Directory. Then based upon the type of license you go for Active Directory, you are going to get a self-service password change. Remember, this is only available with certain license features on. Then you can also have multi-factor authentication. You can also do a AD join for your Windows 10. Now AD join is nothing but whenever you are joining any laptop or a desktop to the domain, that is called as AD join. And then with Azure Active Directory, you can create your own custom branding. Yeah, I can have a URL, which URL and a page which will show something like xyzcompany.com. Yeah, as a landing page or something else. Huh? So yeah, so that is how yeah, those are the benefit of your Azure Active Directory. Huh? So let me share one more link which talks about the terminology of Active Directory, whatever we have just seen, the forest, the ADs, the domains, and all those things. Here is another link for it. Yeah. So what is identity? What is account? We will see that in the PPT as well, but there's just a extra link for you. So few concepts we need to just go and understand. So what is identity? Identity is nothing but an object that can be authenticated. That is a identity. What is account? Identity that has a data associated with it is called as account. So you have to create account within your Active Directory, and you have to associate the various data with it. Then Azure AD account. What is Azure AD account? Identity created through your Azure AD or other Microsoft cloud services is called as Azure AD account. Now, what is this other Microsoft? It is talking about the MS 365. This is the SaaS offering which is done by Microsoft, which will provide you access to the Outlook, to the to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on. Then we have a Azure Active Directory tenant or a directory. Okay, so this is nothing but a dedicated, a trusted instance of your Azure Active Directory. A tenant is automatically created whenever your organization signs up for any Microsoft Cloud Service subscription. So whenever I created my account, yes, a tenant is automatically added to my account. Yeah. So it provides you additional instance of your Azure AD, which can be created along with it. Azure AD is the underlying product which is providing you the identity service whenever you are using this Active Directory tenant. A tenant means a single instance of your Active Directory representing a single organization. The term tenant or directory are often interchangeably used whenever you are working with your Azure Active Directory. And then the last but not least is the Azure subscription. Every account needs to have at least one subscription, which will be a logical boundary, which will help you to segregate your bill. And this will help you to pay the Azure Cloud Services bill as well. So these are the various concepts we need to remember within our Active Directory. So now, so we have just seen Azure Active Directory, yeah, and we have also seen MS Active Directory. So let us go and look at the key difference when we are going to work with both of them. Yeah. So how do you compare? Basically, your Azure AD is a identity solution for the cloud, and it is designed for HTTP and HTTPS communication. Hmm? Yeah. And whenever you want to connect to your Azure Active Directory, you are using the queries using the REST API or HTTP and HTTPS. Whenever I am using the MS Active Directory, I am using the LDAP protocol, MS Active Directory. In that case, I am using a LDAP protocol, lightweight active directory protocol. This is called LDAP, lightweight active directory. Then whenever you use your Azure directory, you use HTTP, HTTPS protocol such as SAML, Web Identity Federation, OpenID Connect for authentication, and OAuth for authorization instead of the Kerberos authentication. Kerberos is again tied up to your Microsoft Active Directory, which is on the on-premise. Yeah, your AAD will include federation services and integrated with third-party services like the social media provider, like Facebook, Google, and so on. Your Azure AD users and group are created in a flat structure, and there are no OUs or group policies which are attached to that. So this is how it is going to be connected. Yeah. Okay, just a minute. And here is a more detailed explanation of the comparison. Yeah, you can see a more detailed based upon app functionality, based upon devices, yeah, and so on. So here is the link for it. Okay. Fine. So we'll move to next. Yeah. Now, whenever we are using our Microsoft or the Azure Active Directory, we need to take care into the various license features which are available. So based upon the different license, there are certain features which are associated with that license. Okay, this is a very small summary of the various license feature, but more details are available on this page. So we have licenses as P1, P2, and so on. So this is purchasing option. I want to show the pricing. Where is that? Go into this features, and no, I think let us go on the same page. Okay. Yes, basically, where is the pricing for it? Yeah. So within Azure, there is one tool which is called as pricing calculator. This is also available in the AWS environment, which will help you to calculate actually what is the cost of your resources we are going to provide within the Azure or the AWS. That is called as pricing calculator. Here is a link for your Azure pricing calculator. I'm also going to give you a link for your AWS calculator. Um, This is very, very useful whenever you want to get an understanding how much is the costing I'm going to get whenever I'm using the cloud resources. Okay, as a pre-sales or a solution architect, these two URLs are very, very useful for you to actually see the pricing of various services and then work upon it. Okay, coming back to our pricing models. Yeah. So in Active Directory, there are four kind of license. One is the free. One is called MS 365 apps, which comes with your Microsoft subscription. Then we have a P1 licensing and we have a P2 licensing. As you can see, the free tier, the free tier has very limited set of features. For example, it supports 50,000 objects. Yeah, it includes the user, the group, the laptops, the computers which are connected to the Active Directory. Hmm? Then there is a single sign-on feature which is unlimited. Then some core identity and access features which are available, and the business-to-business collaboration is also possible. Rest other features are missing from your free tier. Hmm? So that is not available. Then moving on to your Microsoft Office 365 app features. um, with this, you don't have any limitation in terms of how many objects you can manipulate, you can control within the Microsoft. Then unlimited single sign-on, and you also get identity and access management by using the Office 365 offering. Rest others are missing from here. And okay, okay, fine. Yeah. Then we have a premium P1. This is one of the license. With this, you get some advanced features. Okay. So you can club your Azure hybrid identity, on-premise identity, as well as your cloud identity. Then there are certain premium features, some conditional access, and so on. You can do the access of the particular portal or the domain based upon the geographical location of the user, based upon IP address. All those things are available with your premium P1 license. Hmm? Then we have premium P2 license. In this case, you can have some kind of features of identity governance. With your P2 licensing, you have a self-service password reset. Yeah, self-service password reset is only available with your P2. So remember that. Okay. Yeah, so let me just go through this comparison. Yeah. Active Directory, compare, not this one, but I want to see the licensing. Concept, how to resources, not this one. Feature, yes, pricing. Yeah, here is the pricing for your thanks. Okay, so you can see standard, enterprise, premium. Here it is talking about Active Directory domain services. Yeah, this is talking about the domain service actually, but we were looking at the Active Directory actually, but it's not showing here. Fine, let it be. Uh, 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 Leave that. Leave, no worries. I let me show you various other features of your Active Directory, groups, architecture, development guide, features. Uh, yes, there is another one feature which is available when you are using this service. You get a free trial of P1 services, P1 services of your Active Directory free of cost for 30 days. So in that you can go and look at actually the self-service portal and so on. So let me go and show you what I have in my environment. So I go to the Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, here it is. And yes, okay, and you will see features. Okay, so all these are the various features are available. And if you go to the licensing part, it will say, yeah, so I have, okay, where it is showing the licenses, manage self-service sign up, it is available, license feature, yes. Okay, so these are the features which are available with the P2. Yeah, you can see my current license is showing as P2, and with my current licensing, I have all these features which are not available: device registration, then password protection, then identity protection. There's something called as identity protection, where you can protect the identity of user and not to uh, allow anybody to access it or all. Then privilege identity management. This is another one of the feature which is available with your P2 licensing. Yeah, which will help you to manage access. Then there is a concept called just in time, which is nothing but whenever you need access, you can use this just in time features. Hmm? And discovery and monitor your devices. So there are various features of Active Directory, and Active Directory in itself is a vast topic. So which is not part of your Azure, but it is heavily depend upon the Active Directory concept. So you can see my this Azure is tied up to the default directory which I have set up, and it is having a P2 premium version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pause here, and I will take the questions if you have any questions on whatever the things we have seen till now. Okay, so I could see some questions in the chat. Okay, fine. There is Active Directory is related to what kind of service? So Sheikh, this is only for your user management, policies, permission, endpoints, laptop, desktop, and all. So it is used for that. Means what type, which type of service it is. So it is just a identity and identity authorization and authentication service, just like uh, see similar to what we have in AWS, which is IAM. Okay, we have IAM service in Azure as well. Okay, but this IAM service is heavily related to the Active Directory service of Microsoft. Okay, in AWS you don't have a Microsoft Active Directory like that. Okay, you can create an Active Directory in AWS as well, but in Azure it is heavily dependent on the Active Directory service, which can be your on-premise or it can be your Azure Active Directory. But yes, it overlaps with the IAM service of AWS, or even for that matter your what you can say Azure IAM. Now you can see here, I have certain users here. Okay, these users can be user of your Active Directory, and if based upon the permission which I give to this user, they will be part of the Azure IAM service as well. So the permissions, the policies, they differ from your Active Directory as compared to your Azure IAM. We will see that later on. Okay, I am a user type as member, and let me just go and look at the assigned role here. So now this assigned role in terms of nothing is there. Okay, let me just go to another user. Yes, I think enabled. And what is the assigned role for this? Yeah. So you can see these roles are, they are actually only pertaining to the Active Directory, and there will be other roles which are only pertaining to the Azure environment. Which services are free in Azure? There are n number of services. For example, here it is. You can see just like our AWS virtual service, virtual machine service, SQL database, your storage service, your app service, your database, Cosmos database, and so on. There are certain services which are free of cost. But remember, there is a limitation in terms of what is the type of resource you are going to use. And based upon my personal opinion, this B1S, the virtual machine, it is really very hard to get hold of this, the machine. Yeah, many times you will not be able to get the capacity of this B1S in that particular region. Okay, so it is very disappointing that, yeah, you will not be able to actually, even though it is said free of cost, you are not going to be able to use it. We'll see that, and we'll come across that issues. Okay, fine. So this is Azure Active Directory for you. Very important concept of Active Directory. Now we are going to move to another concept, which is the users, which you have to configure within our Active Directory. If you don't have any questions, I will move on to the next section. Okay, fine. So here is user creation. How do you create users within your environment? Now this users, can be created in your Active Directory, and the same users will be able to access your various Azure services based upon the privileges you give to those users. Okay, all users within your Active Directory must have an account. Hmm? The account will be used for authentication and authorization. Along with these users, you have to give them additional properties, like whether this is a user as a member type, whether it is a security user, guest user, and so on. So we will look at those properties by creating a user. Okay, so let me just go into this and share you a link. How do you create a Active Directory user within the Azure environment? So here is the link for it. Okay, so it gives step by step how do you create a user. I will refer this. There's one more. Virtual machine standards is for every month. Yes, it is for every month till 1 year. Hmm, yeah. Okay, here is the way. So what you have to do, you have to go into your Azure Active Directory and then select the new user, give the details, which is like name and the username, and the domain part. By default, it is going to be taken care something like this. Your domain name, which you have given whenever you have created your Azure account, and it will be then .onmicrosoft.com. You can also create a custom domain. This is one of the popular domain which whenever you will look at the Microsoft documentation, this contoso.com is a domain which is very frequently referred in various examples. So let us go and create a user within our Active Directory. Now this is, I'm creating an Active Directory. Remember this thing. Okay, so let us go and create it. Here is my directory. How did I come to this? I went to the home and I will type in Azure Active Directory. Now remember one thing, in my Azure account, I don't have any other Active Directory apart from the Azure Active Directory, which is the cloud-based Active Directory I'm using. I don't have an on-premise Active Directory at this moment. So the only source of truth for any kind of authentication and authorization will be my Azure Active Directory. And here it is. I go into the user section here. And I can see there are so many users. I can just go here and I will say create user. Then I can either create a user or I can just invite a guest user as well. Okay, that will be a guest user, but I will just create a user. Now you can see, there is a domain name which is listed here and I need to create that user. So I am going to create ExcelR user one. This is the name of the user, and it is going to have my domain based upon the domain I have created. Now I will give the name ExcelR as the name, first name ExcelR user one, and in the first name I will just copy ExcelR, and in the last name I will copy just the user one. Fine. Then I can set up a password. Yeah, I can set up, let me create the initial password, or I can ask a auto generated. I will, let me create a password, and I have to have a very long password. Fine. Otherwise it will not take, yes. Okay, at least 8 characters. So I'm just going to give 4. Yes, that's fine. If I want to add this group, and again, this is an Active Directory group, not a Azure group, I will give that. Just a minute. Okay. Fine. I can add to the group, but at this moment, I will not add it. Then I can give any other details. For example, India, I can have. Yes. Okay. This is going to help based upon the usage location and the feature of our premium P2 license. We can restrict people from certain geographical locations. That is also possible. And I will say just Mr. Department IT and company XYZ, or simply conto. So, okay, fine. That's it. And I will create a user. Yeah, a user is created. Okay, you can see here, this is the user. It is my user. Let me refresh. Uh, Refresh, and here it is, my user. Now at this point, this user does not have any permission. He does not have any role assigned to it, and he can't do anything. There's no directory. So you can see here, it is talking about no directory role assigned, huh? No administrator unit assigned, no group assigned, no application assigned. Okay, and there is also, you can see here, Azure role assignment. We will see that what are the different Azure role we can add. First of all, I will just assign a Active Directory, yeah, role, and I will make him a administrator. EMI. Okay, and we look at the filter, and you can see there are so many various roles I can give. I will give him the user administrator policy. Now, what this user can do, it can manage all aspect of user groups, creation, resetting password, and all those things. If I look at, let's say, yeah, a global reader. Okay, this global reader can read anything within your Azure environment or your Microsoft environment. Then global administrator, this is a most, I would say, the highest rated permission you can have, can manage all aspect of Microsoft Active Directory or any Active Directory that uses Azure Active Directory as the identity. Okay, so remember not to give a global administrator whenever you are using. Along with this, you can see there are roles which are for a dynamic 365 administrator. Now, why this is showing here? Because this, your Active Directory is not just used in your Azure, but it is also used in some Dynamics, which is MS Dynamics software from Azure. And you will also see other things. Yeah, Exchange administrator, and so on. Power administrator, Power BI administrator, and so on. So in this case, I'm just going to give him the permission of yeah, let me just a user administrator. Okay, fine, and add it. Yeah, and I will say refresh. Yeah, and it takes some time. Okay, so it is not immediately it is going to be refreshed. Uh, Refresh again. Okay, still nothing is there. Let me try and do it again. User administrator, select add. Failed to complete due to service connection error. Pre-try again. I think it is already created, but yeah, but it is not being updated here. Hmm? So here it is. I can now I can use this credentials and I can, yeah, use it. Now I can also uh, fine. If I go to the users here in my Active Directory, I can pass this credentials to, yeah, download the user details. I can do that, and this will give me export. uh, Okay, this is going to give me everything. Yeah, I can do some bulk operations. If I want to add bulk of users, I can do that by using this bulk operations, bulk create. It will give you a kind of Excel file wherein you just have to um, put it in your details and use it. Let us do one thing. Let us go and try logging with this user ID. I am going to use in private window and then portal and the details of my user. So what is the user ID? This is the user ID for my, and where is my, yes. So I will sign in with my, yeah, and then next, and the password for him. And the password is this one for, yes. Yes, okay, it is asking me to update the current password and six. Okay, and I'm going to give the password here. Okay, fine, sign in. Don't, yeah, cancel it. Yes. Yes. Okay, and you will see that maybe I am able to connect to my the Azure portal. Now look at one of the thing here. Okay, if I go here and try to access, it is saying you don't have a subscription. Check out the following option: create a free tier, manage Active Directory, and so on. Why? Because at this moment I have not given him any permission to access the Azure environment. If I just go and look at Active Directory, yes, he will be able to open that. Okay, he will be able to open that. He will be able to see the users. He'll be able to add the users and so on. But anything related to your Azure environment, he's not able to do anything. What do you have to do? You have to go and add him that require permission. Okay, let us do one thing. Let us go into the other, and then I will go to the Azure role assignment here. Hmm? In this case, I can assign him any role I want. Okay, so where is my, yeah, okay, I do not see here anything because I have not attached him anywhere. So how do I do that? I need to go into the subscription. Now subscription is at the highest level of the hierarchy of your Azure environment. If I give him this access to the subscription, then he will have access to all the resources within my subscription. How do you do that? You go to the subscription and into the IAM section here, which is identity and access management of the Azure environment. And I can do one thing. I can add a role here. And now this role is talking about the Azure role, not the Active Directory role. And you can see these are all Azure roles which are built-in role from via the Azure environment. Now, few of the major roles which are added as part of your Azure environment. One is called as owner, which grants you full access to all resources. Yeah. And any kind of a role assignment based upon rollback access. Then there is another role which is called as contributor. Let me just go and highlight this Azure roles. Yeah. Yeah. This is the rollback access. Okay. So let me just share this. Is IAM in AWS and AD in Azure is under free tier? Yes, Sheikh, it is under free tier. Yeah. Active Directory, it is not, but yes, the Azure IAM, yes, it is in the free tier. Here it is, the roles. Yeah. So this is called as Azure role-based access control, which has all various Azure built-in role which can be assigned to user to grant him permission access to certain resources. Hmm? The contributor role is nothing but it is a read write role. Okay, name is called as contributor, but it is nothing but a read write role on your resources. It grants full access to manage all resources but does not allow you to assign roles in a RBAC. It can manage assignment in a blueprint or share image galleries. So you can do a read write operation, but you cannot change the permission of a particular user with the contributor role. For this you need to have a owner permission. So what is owner? It grants full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign roles within your Azure environment. That is the owner role. Then we have a reader role. You can see all resources, but does not allow to make any changes to your resources. And then the third one is the user access administrator. It lets you manage user access to your Azure resources. It is similar to what we have seen the user administrator role within the Active Directory. It is similar to that. Then there are other roles which are based upon the various services. For example, if you want somebody to get access to the managing the virtual machine, then you can go compute contributor role, disk backup reader, disk snapshot contributor, and so on. Like this, we will have different roles for different services and so on. Okay, but remember the at the high level where it is the owner, the reader, and the contributor role. Remember this: reader is read only, contributor is read write without the role assignment permission, and the owner will have complete access. Okay, now let us do one thing. I was trying to add this person as what you can say a role so that he can look at our Visual Studio subscription. Now I'm directly giving access to the top level so that he will have access to everybody. Okay, but whenever you want to give access to any user, start with a small. For example, give him the access to a virtual machine first. Yeah, give him the access to a virtual network or VNet, or give him access at the resource group level, and then move into the subscription. So let me do one thing. I will just give him the reader access. Okay, so this is selected and I will go next. And then I have to select, okay, the member. In this case, I'm going to select the one which I have created just today, which is this. And I will say yes. And I will say review and assign. So now failed, unable to complete due to service connection error. That was the earlier one. I will say review, and it is now doing the role assignment. Now what it is, it says ExcelR user added as a result a reader for the Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. I go into my another window and look at that. Now this was the earlier message. If I just go and refresh, it takes some time. Okay, so we need to have some patience. Yes, very good. So you can see it is now giving me giving access, and I can also see my bills and all those things. Yeah, so if I just go on the home and I go into the virtual machine, it will give some error for some time, but it will go after some time. I can go into the subscription here and I can see the subscription, and my role it is showing as a reader. So this is how you give permission to the user. Now, whenever you create your account within your Azure, you get a owner permission. How it is done, I can show you based upon my access which I got. So here is my account, and I am going to go into my Active Directory, and here is my user credentials, the one which I have created as part of my onboarding. Here it is. Yes, this is my Microsoft account, and I can this is it is showing member. Okay, no, but you can see this is the user ID I have used, and it has a complete access to this owner, and you can see here my role as global administrator. if I go into this view role information, I am a global administrator. This is the highest level of privilege you can give within your Azure environment. So never ever give anybody a global uh, administrator role. He can do anything within this Active Directory. Fine. And you can see my role yeah. It is not showing any subscription, but yes, I do have that actually access. Okay. So this is how you create a user and you can use that user to log in into the Azure Active Directory. Then yeah, you can do the same thing what I've just explained you. For adding the users, you need to have a global administrator privilege or a user administrator privilege to manage. You can add the user profile and give information like contact info, picture, job, so that so other information. Deleted, whenever you delete any user within your environment, the deleted user can be restored for a period of 30 days. So by default, any user which is deleted, his credentials or his details are visible for next 30 days, and you can recover that user from your Azure environment. You can also have a sign-in audit log information for this user and whatever the user you have created, and you can use it for the auditing purpose. Then we move to the next part, which is the group creation. Now you can also create a group. Yeah, group can be your security group, Microsoft 365, and you can have various other groups, for example, a virtual administrator, a network administrator, and so on. And then you can assign the users to those groups. Assignment can be based upon dynamic user and dynamic user which will be automatically added. You can go and simply assign the users, and then dynamic device group as well, which is only related to the security group part, which is going to add your laptop, your desktop, and so on to the group. Hmm? So let me just give you some of the links for this. Here is the quick start. How do you add a group? So MS3 Sheikh, MS365 is a SaaS offering from Microsoft. Just like Azure, it is one of the offering from Microsoft. MS365 is also one of the offering from actually your Microsoft. Hmm? And what is the role of it in Azure? There is as such no role, but yes, whenever you buy a MS365 license, you get certain access or certain licenses which can be utilized in your Azure environment. That's the only thing you can get. Let me open this link, which is what is the uses of Azure? It is for your cloud computing environment, Sagar. Yeah, just like what we have seen for your AWS, it is also going to use. It is also going to provide you the cloud computing environment. Okay. Then let me go and paste it here. The link. There it is. Yeah. Okay, and these are the okay. We have already seen. Okay, fine. So this is how you create a user and you assign permission. You have role. Remember one thing: you need to assign different roles, different permissions for an Active Directory user. You need to assign different permission, different roles to your Azure. Yeah, which is called as Azure Rollback Access. So that's it in the Active Directory section. We have to move now to this next section, which is our compute services. Hmm? So any doubt till now? Anybody? Hmm? If not, we will move ahead. Same user ID, AWS and Azure. No, you cannot do that. For that, you need to have another component, which is called as ADFS integration. Then you will be able to do it. Hmm? Okay, Sagar? Yeah. So let us go and look at the Azure compute services. What are the different compute services? Yeah. Now, first of all, what is compute? Compute is nothing but it's a on-demand computational power which you are going to get from your Azure environment. The compute resource are something like a processor, a memory, a networking, an operating system, and any storage disk which are attached to your compute. Within the compute services, there are different services which are available, which all fall under the compute. For example, if you need free account without credit, no, you cannot. Yes, Ajit Kumar, you cannot create without a credit card. That's a problem. Hmm? There are certain other things which can do. Um, the Microsoft Learn account, it will give you some sandbox to play with, which I've already shared the links for it. So yeah, okay. So we can create a virtual machine by using this virtual machine service, which is nothing but your compute part of the compute. Then this virtual machine service will fall under the ISAS, yeah, IaaS, yeah, IaaS. Then we have app service, which falls under the PaaS service, wherein it gives you infrastructure, and you have to just go and configure your application on top of your Azure app service. This app service provides host of various platforms, for example, .NET, Java, Python, Ruby, and so on, wherein you go and just install your application and your application will be up and running. Then we also have a container instance services, which is going to help you to implement a containerized solution on your Azure environment. Then we also have a Azure Kubernetes service, which is called as AKS. This is the Azure's flavor of the open source Kubernetes service. Yeah. With this AKS, you can use this AKS orchestration service to manage and maintain the containerized application on your Azure environment. Then we also have Azure Virtual Desktop Service, which is a VDI service. It is called as VDI, which is going to give you on-demand desktop on the cloud for you. That is possible. Okay. So let me share some of the links for the compute services. Yeah. And yes. Okay, so let us go and see one by one all the services, and we'll also do a practical demo of it. Yeah, if time permits, I think we should be able to create a virtual machine today. Fine. Yeah, so what is Azure Virtual Machine? A virtual machine is nothing but a kind of a software emulation of a physical computer in the Azure cloud environment, which includes a virtual processor, a memory, a storage, and networking device. This falls under the ISAS offering, which provides total control and customization of your virtual machine within the Azure environment. Then, whenever you want to go and use your virtual machine, you need to plan how do you going to use the virtual machine. Now, this virtual machine is a kind of a regional service which is available. Is there any problem with accessing the attendance? JSV is having some issues. Okay, fine, it is fine. Okay, thank you. No worries. Yeah.
It will be open within 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Bharat. Yeah. So whenever you want to use your virtual machine, you need to plan how you are going to use your virtual machine. This virtual machine service is available in 60 plus region, which is available in 140 countries. And this is a regional service. Again, the same concept, place your virtual machine VM close to your user. Wherever your user, yeah, user, place it close to this. Yeah. Whenever you create your virtual machine, you need to build that within a network. You need to name your virtual machine. Then based upon your users, you need to select the region, which will offer you different types of hardware and different capabilities. Try to locate your virtual machine as close as possible to user and to ensure the compliance and legal. Also, whenever you are trying to create your virtual machine, consider the compute cost you are going to incur, and also the storage cost. Storage cost can be your disk, which is associated with your virtual machine. Yeah. Now, again, as we have seen in AWS, there are different types of virtual machine which are available as an offering from Azure. So there are different categories of the virtual machine: A series, B series, D series, E series, G series, H series, and all of them are based upon certain parameters. So let us go and look at. So let me open this link. Yeah, and I will close this and go into this link. Yeah. Okay, so you can see there are different services, and one thing which is very good within Azure is it whenever you are going to use any resources within this Azure environment, it is going to directly give you the pricing as well along with the whenever you are provisioning the resources. So it is very useful when you want to plan it. So here is the link for the various types of virtual machine. Yes, so let us go and look at the various types of virtual machines. Okay, so we have a entry level virtual machine which is for your dev and test environment. This falls under the A series. Yeah, it is most suited for your entry level workload like development, test, and so on. It is economical and provide low cost option to get started with your Azure environment. AV2, this is the family and this is the version of the virtual machine. It is the latest version of non-hyper-threaded virtual machine. Now, what does this mean? This is not going to provide you any kind of a hyper-threading. Yeah, if you want to go and look at this, yeah, go and check what is hyper-threading. Again, very basic information. It is going to be phased out in August 2024. It is used for small web servers, small to medium databases, and any kind of a POC environment. Then we have the B series, yeah, which is a bustable virtual machine. Again, in this case, the CPU of that particular virtual machines is going to burst based upon the whatever the CPU credit it has. It provides very low cost option for workload that typically require a low to moderate baseline CPU utilization. At some time, it also provides you a significant higher CPU utilization based upon the stable capabilities. Then this will fall under the free tier. Yeah, so we are going to use this, but if you don't get it, there's no other way but to use the other higher version of the EC2 machine. Then we have a D series, which is called as general purpose compute, which has a mix of a virtual CPU, memory, and also provides something called as temporary storage. Yeah, so we will see the concept of temporary storage which is available. We have the DV3, which is the hyper-threaded general purpose virtual machine, which is based on the Intel Xeon processor, which is using the processor which is E5-2673. Then we have the latest generation, which is the V4 yeah, and DV4 and DDV4. They are based upon the Platinum 8273 processor. This DDV4, it features a fast, large local SSD storage, which is not available with your DV4. It is well suited for application that benefits from low latency, high speed local storage. Then we have DDV5, which is again based upon the third generation of Intel Xeon processor. Then we also have the AMD based processor, which is denoted by DA or DAS. Like this, we have different services. Now, few of the things you need to remember, some of them will support a SSD or a ultra disk as well. So based upon this requirement of your storage, go and look for the exact series. Then we have E series, which is for in-memory application, which is having a more what you can say CPU to memory ratio, which is generally used for any kind of a memory intensive application, large database application, and any kind of a analytics. Yeah. So in this case, you will see EV3, V3 series, EV4, then EA and ES as well. Again, it is based upon the AMD and the Intel based processor. Then we have F series. F series is a compute optimized virtual CPU machines, which will give you a good compute functionality. This is ideally suited for any kind of a compute intensive workload and so on. Then we have a G series, which is based upon Xeon processor, and it is going to have a what you can say It is used for your SQL, NoSQL, SAP, and data warehousing solution. It provides 4 times more faster solid state drive as compared to the D series. That's the only difference between your. Yeah. It features up to half terabyte of RAM and 32 CPU cores. Hmm. Then we have H series. This is for the high performance computing virtual machine, which is ideally suited for your HPC workload, where you want to do some kind of rendering work, quantum yeah, simulation, any kind of a computational, electronics design, and so on. So it is going to be used for the high computing. Hmm. Yeah, it does not provide a hyper threading, so be aware of that. Then it supports SSD. Then L series, which is storage optimized. Again, this is going to perform more IO operations as compared to other things. Hmm. It is going to provide you large local disk storage as compared to any other resources. So these are the all the series. You can just go and understand more about it. I have just given you the link for it, so you can go through it. Yeah. Then yeah, let me go through this one more link, which is this one. Yeah. How do you size your virtual machine in your Azure environment? Hmm? Based upon these are the criterias where you can size based upon this. Okay. Whenever you want to go, yeah, this is the general purpose. This is has certain features. Then compute optimize has certain features and so on. Hmm? So what you have to do, you have to look at the benchmark score for your CPU. How do you manage the cost? All those things also will differ based upon these parameters. So this is for the window. This is for the actually, yeah, this is applicable for both virtual machine, Linux as well as Windows virtual machine. Let me paste this as well here in this link. And then let's move ahead. Yeah. Again, whenever you want to work your virtual machine, you also need to look at the storage which is attached to your virtual machine. Hmm? So whenever you want to provision a virtual machine, you have to keep in mind that there are certain storages which are available by default with them. The first and foremost thing which is going to be available with your virtual machine is called as OS disk. Now, OS disk is nothing but a disk on which you are going to install the operating system. This is the mandatory disk which is attached with your virtual machine. Then you will have a temporary disk. This is a temporary disk. What is this temporary disk? This is going to be a storage on which you are going to store certain data, but which will be wiped out as soon as you stop your virtual machine. So this is only for a temporary purpose. And again, this is based upon the type of the virtual machine you are going to select. Whatever the family of virtual machine you are going to select, it is going to be based upon that. The size of that is going to be based upon that. And the third disk which we are going to attach is the data disk, which is again optional, but this is just like your hard disk, which you can add on top of your virtual machine. Yeah. The OS disk and data disk reside within the Azure storage account. Yeah. So this is the place where you will find this OS disk and all. And there are different types of the disk. One is the standard base, which can be based upon the hard disk or the SSD drive, and then there will be a premium SSD, and then there will be a ultra SSD as well. So let us go and look at the disk. Again, the link for it. So yeah, here is the disk. Okay. Disk type. We will first go to the disk type and then we will come to that. So you can see this table. This table outline the type of disk and what is the underlying technology and what is the cost for it. So you have a standard HDD. Standard HDD is nothing but it is using the hard disk drive, which has some moving part. And this is denoted by this HDD. It is generally used for any kind of a backup, non-critical and infrequently accessed data. The maximum size of the HDD you can have is 32 GB, and you are going to get a very high throughput as compared to any other disk when we are using the HDD. Yeah. The primary focus of this disk is to provide you more throughput rather than the IOPS. So you can see here the IOPS is very less for the standard HDD. Now in this all this disk, this is the most cheapest kind of a disk. Hmm? If you need more details, yes, you can just go and look at the other parameter of the disk HDD. Whenever you select a disk within Azure, there are the SQs for this serial keeping unit that is called, and it is going to have a name like this: S4, S6, S10, S15, S20, and so on. Based upon this number, you are going to have a size of the disk, and based upon that, there will be IOPS and the throughput. So within the standard HDD, you have a disk which will come into 32 GB, then 64. It is in the multiple of actually the size. Hmm? Then yeah, again moving to the next. Then we have a standard SSD. Now this standard SSD is based upon the SSD technology, which is ideally suited for your web server, any kind of a light enterprise application, or any dev test environment. The maximum size, again, it is same 32 GIB. This time it is going to provide you much higher throughput and also the higher IOPS. You can see there is 6,000 IOPS, which is available with the standard SSD. Again, going back to this, you will have sizes like this. The standard SSD is denoted by letter E, E1, E2, E4, E4, 6, and so on. Again, there will be size, the IOP which you can get, the throughput, and the max bustable IOP, and so on. Hmm? GB is same as GIB for storage. No shake, this is not true. The GIB is less as compared to GB. Yeah, if I go compare GB of versus GIB. Okay, here is the calculator. So it is called as GB byte, and this is called as gigabyte. Yeah, and if you look at uh, the other way around, GIB to GB. Yeah, okay. So 1 GB byte equals to 1.073 GIB. So it is not same. Okay, if I look at yeah, if I look at 10 GB, it is going to be this one, and there is 1 GIB 2 MB. Okay, so yes, 1 GB bit GB bit is equals to 1073 megabytes. Hmm? Approximately 1074 megabytes. Okay, so this is how the difference is. So GIB bits, GIB is anytime smaller than the GB. Hmm? Fine. Let us move to the standard disk. Now then we have a premium disk. Now this is the premium disk, which is generally by default attached to your any virtual machine. It is generally used for production ready performance sensitive workload, and it is going to give you a max throughput of 900 MB per second and a max IOPS of 200 2000 20,000 IOPS. Yeah, so if I look and go into this premium SSD, premium SSD is generally for a high performance, low latency disk support. To take advantage of the speed and performance of your premium disk, you can use any of your existing virtual machine disk and migrate it to the premium disk. Premium disk is more suitable for your mission critical workload, and it is compatible with almost all the virtual machines, but you have to go and look at it. The premium disk is denoted something by letter P, P1, P2, P3, and so on. Hmm, okay, your premium SSD supports busting and so on. Yeah. And then we have the ultra disk. Yeah, ultra disk is useful for very high intensive workload, for a workload such as SAP HANA, which is a high performance computing workload, any kind of a databases, which is very, I would say, IO intensive, and any transaction heavy workload. The maximum disk size with this you can have is 65 GB byte, and the maximum throughput you can get is 4000 MB per second. This is huge. Yeah, but at the same time, this is the most costliest disk you can attach to your hard disk. Remember one thing, all not all virtual machine will support the ultra disk, so you have to go and check that, and then only you will be able to attach to it. It is going to provide a highest performance uh, uh, for your virtual machine. Then ultradisk offer up to 32 TIB per region per subscription by default, but ultradisk supports higher capacity by request. So you can see you get with a size of 4 GB, you get IFs of 1200 and a throughput of 300. Hmm, okay, and yeah, like this. Okay. So you have to just go and check where it is available, then only you should actually refer to it. Hmm. Where is the size of it? Okay, it is not there. Okay, fine. Okay, so this is the disk. Now one more concept which is available within Azure is the concept of managed disk and unmanaged disk. Now, whenever we are going to use the disk, which is managed disk, all the underlining provisioning of the disk, maintenance of the disk, everything is taken care by Azure. But when we are going to use unmanaged disk, we have to take care of the maintenance of the disk. And this is not the recommended practice to go and use the unmanaged disk. Always try to go for a managed disk and utilize it. Hmm? So there is a table here. Okay, why we should go for a managed and unmanaged disk. Uh, yes, this is instance size and overview. Yeah. Okay. So few there is a yeah. So Azure managed disk are block level storage that are managed by Azure and used within the Azure virtual machine. Managed disk are nothing but just like your physical disk on your on-premise, but with a virtualized technology. Yeah. With managed disk, all you have to do is to just specify the size, the type, and provision disk. Rest of the things is taken care by the Azure environment. Now these are the benefits. Yeah, let's go and look at the unmanaged disk actually. Okay, it is not okay. Okay, it is not given here, but what are the benefits is whenever you want to use this managed disk, it is highly available, highly durable. You can simply attach and scale the virtual deployment. It integrates with availability set, which is one of the availability options which you have. It also integrates with your availability zone. There is also support for a backup of this by using the service called Azure Backup. You can also take a disk backup. You can have a more granular control over the disk by using the Azure RBAC, and it is highly secure. You can do encryption and so on. So these are the benefit of a managed disk as compared to unmanaged disk. Always go for a managed disk. Another thing which I want to tell you is the temporary disk. Okay, most of the VM will come with a temporary disk, which is not a managed disk. The temporary disk provides your short-term storage for your application and process, and is only intended to store data as a page or a swap file. Okay, so this is only for temporary purposes. The data on the temporary disk will be lost during a maintenance event, or if you just redeploy your virtual machine. During a successful reboot of a virtual machine, the data on the temporary disk will persist. Remember, if you stop it, then only the data is lost. But if you do a reboot, it will not. You will not lose the data. Hmm, fine. So this is your data disk. Then let me go and show you some of the way how you can create a virtual machine in the environment, and then from tomorrow we will do the practical of it. So here I am in the portal. Here is my portal. And now if I want to create a virtual machine, I have to just go and look at the virtual machine and select this. Now, unless and until you have the access to this subscription and the virtual machine, you'll not be able to come to this page. Hmm? And just like your AWS environment, the first point to start within a virtual machine configuration is to select the virtual AMI, the image. Hmm? But very, very important and very critical part of your what you can say Azure is Azure resource group. Okay, we just go and look at Azure resource group. Okay, yes. So what is a resource group? Whenever you want to create any resource within your Azure environment, the first thing you have to create is to create a resource group. Hmm? So what is the resource group? A resource group is like a logical group, and it's a container that holds all related service for your Azure solution. Which means, suppose I am creating a virtual machine. So for virtual machine, what I have to create? I have to create a virtual machine. I have to create an IP address. I have to create a storage disk. I have to create any kind of a, a elastic network interface. Yeah, all those things I have to create whenever I am creating a virtual machine. So all these resources are going to sit inside your resource group. So it's like a boundary for your resources, and all resources will be created within this resource group. Hmm? The resource group can include all resources for a solution or only those that you want to manage as a group. Then you decide how you want to allocate resources to the resource group based on what makes the most sense for you. Generally, resources share the same life cycle of the resource group, so that you can easily deploy, update, delete the group as a delete them as a resource. One of the best thing with this resource group is, if you want to delete all the resources which are part of that resource, just go and delete the resource group, and it will delete everything which is part of the resource group. Okay, so this is how you have to go and create a resource group. So this is one of the way of doing it. We can do it via the portal, we can do it via the CLI, and we can also do it via the PowerShell. All the three options are available for us. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to open this chat for any questions. I will take your questions, and if you have any questions, I will try to answer it, and then we'll end the class for today. Yeah, I'm open for questions. Yeah, I could see somebody has raised a hand. I cannot see who has that, but yeah, I could see somebody has raised a hand. Anybody, any questions? Uh, no, this is not a certification course. This is just an overview. Charita, this is not a certification course. Hmm? Who is this global? Yes, global. Tell me what is the concern you have? Anybody else? Any questions? Hmm? Okay, what services we are going to learn in the this Sheikh? So we are going to focus on major services. For example, your Azure virtual machine, then Azure storage account, Azure VNet, Azure SQL, and so on. Can you tell me the difference between AWS and Azure? So this is so the differences will be based upon the services which we are going to do. So as a part of this class, I'm planning to cover the differences between all the three cloud provider on the last or penultimate class of our this. So there are various differences, okay, but we will look at service by service at this moment. Don't go and look at the differences, okay. If you ask my personal opinion in terms of the services which are offered by AWS and uh, your Azure, there is a huge gap in terms of the maturity of the services. This is my personal opinion. Okay, I feel that yes, AWS services are more robust, more easy to manage as compared to the Azure, and you will see that difference when we are going to um, look into the configuration part. Okay, so this is what I want to highlight here. Okay, yeah, so you were asking which services. So which is virtual machine storage, VNet, SQL, and so on. Anybody else? Which server services is best, AWS or Azure? If you ask my personal opinion, I like AWS. Maria Boina Chandrasekhar. Yeah. Anybody else? No. So we will wait for just 1 minute. If you don't have any questions, we will end the class. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? We'll wait for 1 minute and we'll close the class. Srini, as per the current market, both service provider has a very good potential. There are certain criterias which will govern the decision whether to go for AWS or whether to go for Azure. For example, Azure is from Microsoft, and a lot of people are already heavily invested in terms of the license they have from Microsoft. Yeah, and when you have a license from Microsoft, they give you lot of credit in terms of using the Azure environment. Okay, and that's the reason people will tend to go for the Azure environment. Second is, if you have your application built on .NET stack, yeah, then you tend to go more towards the Azure environment rather than the other. But that does not mean that .NET is not supported on AWS or GCP or anything. But yes, people who are more inclined toward the .NET stack, they will WCF, all those things, they will move towards the Azure environment. Okay, with the help of Azure, can we develop DevOps? Yeah, there are services in Azure as well, which will help you to do DevOps. Yes. How to take a job in cloud, which certification will be needed? Shake. Um, um, I would say certification will help you to stand out from the crowd in terms of screening your resume. Yeah, but again, that has to be complemented with the knowledge you gain in the process of learning those certificates. If you have this combination, this, yes, then you are going to get a job. You will be able to get a job in the cloud field very fast, I would say. Hmm? So if you look at the certification, I would like to hold this question and I will cover it at the end of the our class next week, and I will help you how do you plan your career in the cloud. Okay, I will do a detailed explanation on that. So please hold on, we'll see that later on. Okay, fine. So that's it. We will see tomorrow and we'll continue with the virtual machine. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.